Hey guys, this is Michael, and welcome to a new series I'm calling Let's Make Maps. So one of my hobbies is fantasy cartography. And what does that mean? Well, here's an example of some of my maps. This is a city that I made for a role-playing game supplement I was working on. This is a desert city that I did for a community world building project on a site I'm going to show you later. This is a map of a Star Trek spaceship that I made for a role-playing game that I've done. But you know, I've done a lot of different maps, commissions for people and stuff. Really enjoyed the process of it. I haven't been doing it as much lately, but I'd like to do more of it, and I will start. So this is going to be a series that will share with those of you who are interested how to use some techniques that I've developed and learned from other people to make maps of your own. They might be sci-fi maps, they might be fantasy maps, they might be realistic maps. It doesn't matter. The techniques will apply. There are two ways to make maps, though. One is pure art. If we look at this map, for instance, pure art, not this one, but the other one, absolute art. I can't do that. I can do this. This is easy. Well, maybe not easy, but it's easier, right? I can do this even. But some things require you to be an artist, and if you're an artist, you don't need my help. But what I can do is show you some of the technical things that you can do. So here, actually, since we're rolling past it, is an announcement about the Cartographers Guild, which is a forum for cartography enthusiasts. You can see I've been a member here for quite a while. And every so often, the moderators decide that, hey, let's pick a map and call it our featured map. Well, mine got selected 1 month, which I'm very, very happy about. And this map actually hung in a gallery in Soho, a digital cartography exhibit, which was just extremely cool. It doesn't deserve to be on the page with some of these other guys. I mean, some of these maps are just absolutely amazing. And of course, you're seeing them zoomed out. There's the one I was talking about, I think, that was just rolling across. Some of these are it's just amazing to see the work that other people do. I'm continually awed by stuff that I see, and I hope that you guys will find it of interest too. So let me show you, first of all, let me just show you some of my maps so you can get an idea of some of the stuff that I've done, kind of a range of things. And then we'll talk about the tools and maybe even a few of the techniques. But we won't get too far into anything this time. We'll start looking at some specifics next time. So these are some commission work that I did for an indie RPG, tabletop RPG developer. They're just encounter maps. They weren't, they were done nearly for free, so, I didn't spend a whole lot of time on them. Here's one I did for a contest here on the Guild, and this is kind of set in my Asian-themed RPG world that I've worked on some. It's got a whole little backstory about how it used to be part of the Empire, and now orcs have settled here and stuff. I'll be showing you some details about how this map was made a little later on. This map was kind of made in the same style. It's a city that's been partially destroyed. Was done for another independent publisher. Here's a continent map that was done for Lewis Porter Jr. for his Neo-Exodus setting. This is I did this for a conference RPG, an RPG that I did at a convention, and I just essentially took a cruise ship map and redid it in the form of a starship. And we use that to play on, basically. Here's some Star Trek stuff that I've done. This is I think that maybe the GM map with some secrets on it. You can see some details in there. I copied heavily the Star Trek style in these maps, obviously. But, all basic techniques that I think I can show you how to do over time. Let's see. Here's some realistic encounter maps. This is the sort of thing that you would print out and put miniature pieces on. It's made to look like it's overhead, realistic, even down to little bones on the ground. Here's another one of the inside courtyard of a castle tower. Campfire. This uses just lots of textures, lots of different things combined to make these. It may look magical. It's really not. It is all perfectly understandable. Here's the city map. Now this is the one thing that I've done that I would claim some level of art on. I actually drew this, and I did draw this. This was done on paper, scanned in, and then digitally painted. So, and a lot of features were added. So like these mountains and stuff are the shaping on them is done purely with digital painting. These rice paddies are done the same way. A lot of people don't know what these are. Yeah, they're rice paddies. And then, we've got the cities. And does it zoom in more? No, I guess it doesn't zoom in more. This is actually quite a large map. It's poster sized. And let's see, here's actually a realistic excerpt from that map that I took the positions of the buildings and made a more realistic close-up map. And this map is actually quite detailed. I guess you can't get any closer. You can see that the shadows of the sails are hitting the dock. They're hitting the water at a different place. There's actually stuff submerged below the water that you can see on the full-scale one. So there's a lot of detail, a lot of time that went into this map. But again, it's all the same basic techniques that I'm going to show you guys over the course of this series, however far we take it. So that's the basic look at it. Let's talk about tools. The tool I use most is Photoshop, and this is Photoshop from Adobe. It's CS4. Now I'm not sure where they are now. I know CS6 has been out, and maybe they're doing pure software as a service. I'm not sure what version it is. You can do a lot of this stuff with like a Photoshop Elements, which is a lot less expensive. You can do a lot of it with Paint Shop Pro or GIMP, which is totally free. But maybe not all of it. Photoshop does have some features. Full Photoshop does have some features that you can't get in some of those other ones. And some later versions of Photoshop may have some features that I've never taken advantage of. For instance, with CS5, I think they introduced some 3D technologies that may well have been of use to me. But I never really got to play with them, so I'm not sure. Here's that map again that I was showing you guys. This is a Roman style. Did I show you? I had a recording cut off on me, and I had to start again, so I'm not sure if I showed you or not. This is a Roman style map that I did for Black Star Studios. Some of this is drawn. Some of it is taken from aerial or from satellite photographs and stitched together. I mean, very small sections of buildings from the Italy and the coastline around the Mediterranean, brought together to make this sort of medieval Roman-style city. And then, things like the font and the key and all that, they all help tie it together too. So it's all about the presentation. This one is, not a live file. Unfortunately, I thought this was the live file. I was going to show you the details of how this is made. I will dig that up and I will show you. But I can show you some of those details here in this next one. So this is another map that I did for a little competition on the Cartographers Guild. There's a lot of detail here, but if you look over here on the right, this is where our layers live. And hopefully my camera's not blocking too much. I think it's down here. So we've got a lot of layers on here. We've got the labels and border, all the buildings. We've got some details on the ground, roads, vegetation, and an overlay. And if we open up this very bottom, well, actually I'm going to turn this off. This is what I started with, actually, and I'll show you. This is made with a very, very, very simple program called RPG City Map Generator, and it makes building shapes and roads and trees and stuff, and it's not perfect, but it does. Oh no, actually this one, I'm sorry, you know what, this one wasn't done that way. This was a set of shapes that they gave us and said make a city from these. So, excuse me. The one previous, the Asian style one with the Orc City, that was made with RPG City Generator, and it's a really great tool. I'll show you. It's a free thing. It's really neat to use. But these are the shapes that I use to generate the buildings. If we look at the ground layer and I turn off everything but the base, all this is a repeating texture that's been just repeated across this layer. On this one, all I did was pop in a rocky texture and paint in some areas. So if I select, you can see the areas that are actually painted in. And I painted this in using you can do stuff with a mouse. It's not great. So I use a Wacom tablet. This is the Intuos Medium. It's an Intuos 5. I think there's a new version out now. Maybe it's called Intuos Pro or something like that. And it uses a pressure sensitive pen. You can have different tips here, and there are actually different gadgets. So there's a mouse, there's like an airbrush tool, there's other things. This does like, I don't even know what it is now, 2056 different pressure levels. Photoshop doesn't do that great a job of taking advantage of the pressure levels, but you can do a lot with it. You can make them scale based on speed or the amount of pressure. You can change your brush shape. You can do all kinds of different things. But back to this. Let me deselect. This adds a little riverbed to the thing. If we look, there's a whole set of, let me collapse this window. So we've got a whole set of things under here for river. There's a base color layer. There's another layer which brightens up by the shore. Another layer which adds kind of a surface. And then another layer which adds kind of a reflection to it. All of that comes together to create the river. This whole thing is still looking very flat though. So that's where this comes in. This is a shadow and a light layer which sort of shape the terrain. You can see how much that really caused this whole thing to pop. Then we have vegetation. So I threw down some shrubs. These lines that are cut through here, these are because roads were later cut through. Got a little bit of lighter vegetation on there. We've got some sort of grassy areas that go on. Some little scrubs. And actually, we're not looking at this full size. Let's look at it full size. Some little scrubs that go on. And finally, some trees. And then there's also, I've got another detail layer in here that's just these walls and little gravestones, little graveyards. Okay, so let's close that up and take a look at roads. Roads are very simply, okay, well, so there's a bridge here because it falls under roads, right? So we've got the bridge, and I've got a little layer that kind of adds some color to it. And then I have got some trails, which you probably can barely see here, that are just sort of painted on. This is using a sandy texture to make a trail. And then I do a little bit of brightness adjustment here and color adjustment in a layer. We got some more sandy texture, which covers that up a little bit. A little bit of highlighting to bring them out. And then some ruts to make them realistic looking. So, and next, if we go to the layer I'm calling ground details, what we have here is simply these are tints, like bizarre tints. This is just weird fabric textures that I found or that I have in my library. This gives them some shape. I've got a little bit of variation in the coloration of them to kind of dim them down a little bit. And then a layer on top to sort of blend them in, as it were, to the rest. And then the key layer here is buildings. Let's turn these all off. And you will see, I think that, well, let's leave that off. This is the same thing as that black shape you saw, right? Where all the building shapes were there. These are simply the shapes that were originally created, and I've done a little bit of work here to make this little raised edge. On top of that, I've taken some of these and turned them into a lighter color with a concrete texture. I've taken some of them and given them tile roofs. Notice how flat everything looks. Some more of these I've given a wooden texture. There's a few actually. And then there's a layer that creates the shading on the roofs so we can see that they're actually three-dimensional objects. I've got a little bit of a color adjustment that goes on so that they don't look all the same. And then this grunge texture that I really like to use as an overall layer to kind of make them look lived in and tie them in. And then below all of that, we've got shadows. We have just a basic shadow layer. And then we have a shadow layer for all these stone buildings, because some of them are taller, if you can kind of see. Some of them are casting a longer shadow. So again, all techniques that are fairly easy to achieve. This isn't the most awesome map in the world, but it has a lot of features that I wanted to kind of show you. There's my little light guide, so I knew which way, I could remind myself which way the light was coming from. So yeah, that shows a lot of the techniques that I will eventually get around to showing you. Let me show a couple of the other places that might be of interest to you. When we get into this, one of the things we're going to be using a lot of is textures. So here's an example of a site that has royalty-free and free to download. You have to be careful about this. I mean, if you're doing it for home use, it's fine. If you're doing it for something you're going to sell, or you're going to sell to another publisher or whatever, you need to make sure that you're in the clear. So make sure that stuff is okay for commercial use or whatever use you're using with it. If it's CC with an attribution tag, you need to make sure to attribute the to properly credit the artist. So anyway, this is a site called mb3d.co.uk, which offers graphic seamless textures, probably used mostly for 3D games and that sort of thing, or 3D scenes. But these are perfect for us. We can use these a lot. When you look at a 3D game, a lot of times you'll see, when you zoom out on a terrain, you'll see, the little patches where you can see how the texture is repeating. We got to get rid of a lot of that. But we have some benefits that 3D games don't have. So if you remember the rocky terrain that I had sprayed over that Sanley Bowitz thing, we can selectively bring in other textures on top, kind of like detail textures in 3D in 3D stuff. But we can do a lot more with that because we can be a little artistic with it. So we don't have to be quite as careful about repeating. We do have to watch it a little bit. And we can also selectively paint over. So let's say we're repeating this and this stick is just obvious. Well, we can just make that stick go away with a little bit of artistry. And actually less artistry than technical wizardry. So there's a lot we can do. So a site like this is awesome. Look around, find one, or use this one. This is the one I'm going to grab textures from just for this tutorial. There are also applications that will generate textures for you. So Genetica from Spiral Graphics is one. It's not cheap, but it is super, super, super cool. All these textures in here were generated by this thing, and they're generated using just a very, very cool way of kind of programming. Some things can be like it can generate kind of a wooden style texture, and you can combine that with another thing and layer it with another thing and do an adjustment here. Add a noise feature to it, do lots of other things to it. Really, really super cool. Let's see what the punchline is, though. I had this product at one point, but do not have a current license to it. Buy now. Yeah, it's on sale, but it's $539 for the studio version. Only $89 for the basic version, though. So, maybe an option. Maybe an option. It's not too bad, and it's super, super useful if you do any kind of art. You own those textures 100%, which is awesome. You want to be able to do that. If you can, you want to take your own textures. If you want, take a picture of your wall, take a picture of a dumpster, take a picture of whatever, and use that rather than using something you found on the internet, because you at least know where it came from. All right, so minor warning there. We will continue this again. I'd love to get some feedback, know whether you guys are interested in this even. So if I see some likes on the series, if I see some views, I'll know that you guys want me to continue. I'll definitely go for a little while because I've had some direct requests for it. But I'd like to get some audience participation, so at some point I'm going to ask you guys, hey, what kind of map do you want to work on in a tutorial, so that you guys can be engaged in it. And I can be working on something that you really want to see. So we'll do that. So expect me to ask questions. And I will see you guys soon. Thanks for joining me. Appreciate it. Bye.